Good morning, everybody. Happy Thursday. Happy Thankful Thursday. It's that time again. Imagine it's already Thursday, March 7th. Spring is almost upon us, and we're in the third month of 2024. It's so hard to believe, isn't it? And isn't it funny that we say this every year? Oh, it goes by so fast, and where did the time go? And reminds me how we all have 168 hours every week, and we're all doing the best we can to be efficient with our time, with our thoughts, and with our focus. And that's going to be part of our topic today. So that's super exciting. I just want to thank you for watching, whether you're watching it live right now or listening on Spotify or on Apple Podcasts or, of course, Amazon. I super appreciate you being here. And of course, you know that we're going to be taking some notes. We're going to be going over some cool stuff today. And most importantly, we're going to raise our level and become our better selves just by watching and listening and applying some of the things that we share today. All right, so let's get started and get this ball rolling as usual with a quote. I've got my bulletproof coffee in hand and we are ready to go. So the quote for today, Thursday, March 7th, 2024 is Seneca once said, "Begin at once to live and count each separate day as a separate life." And on that note, welcome to this episode of Live Beyond Default Livestream. It's episode number 63 and your weekly dose of personal growth. My name is Dave. I am your host. I'm a realtor. I'm a speaker, and I am just part of Team Human. And as always, you will love the fun with purpose and the leveling up our lifestyles while watching Live Beyond Default live stream. Good morning, Nate Rubin. And if your week has not been epic so far, let's ask ourselves, why not? And let's start to take responsibility. Just let's take responsibility today, because I'm going to do the same thing. This week has been on and off epic for me, but I recognize that I've created my own life. We've all created our own lives, and what we have and what we don't have is based on previous decisions that we've made, and that's okay. So let's start leveling up our life and not playing victim to our circumstances right now. We're not going to blame our boss. We're not going to blame the economy, or we didn't get into Bitcoin early enough, or it's an election year and we're seeing a lot already of this tribalism and back and forth, right? People looking for saviors in politicians. The only one that can save us is right inside here. And we don't even need saving. We're just leveling up our lives, right? Whether you work a 9-to-5 job, or whether you're a stay-at-home dad or a stay-at-home mom, or maybe you're a senior and you're retired. Maybe you're in college right now. Maybe you're a realtor like me. Whatever it is, we're going to take responsibility for where we're at, and we're going to make today a great day. Just like Seneca said, count each separate day as a separate life. So let's start off with a little bit of gratitude, which I always get excited about because gratitude is the key to happiness. So today, 3 things that I am grateful for is: number 1, the love that others give me. Number 2, the love that I have for myself. And number 3, the opportunity to feel challenges, to feel pain, and to take that opportunity to level up and learn and apply something better in my life. So I want you all out there, whether you're listening live or whether you're on the replay, let's think about that. just think about 3 things that you're grateful for. I put it in my gratitude journal this morning. Maybe while you're at a stoplight right now, you could just go over 3 things that you're grateful for. And of course, if you're listening live, throw those 3 things that you're grateful for in today's chat. So, has anyone heard of Monster Jam? Well, I'm sure you have. I've heard of it on and off over the years, usually Grave Digger. And I took my niece and nephew to go see Monster Jam at the Allstate Arena in Rosemont, Illinois this past weekend. And I have to say, it was very interesting. Um, all around very interesting. It's almost like everything was an advertisement. It's almost like the event itself um, is set up to just sell things either there or to sell things on TV. Now, that's not to say that the drivers and numerous women drivers too, which I thought was super cool. It's not to say that the drivers aren't talented and there's not a lot that they're doing, because they were doing some really cool tricks, and I enjoyed myself, right? And it was just very, very interesting. Pricing was atrocious for any little thing that you would get there. In my opinion, they were selling a lot of things that were just kind of junky. And just the food wasn't very good either. So we did take my niece and nephew out to Portillo's beforehand because they just love Portillo's. And I have not been to a Portillo's in a long time. So I had a beef dry with a side of juice and a side of hot. And I don't even remember the last time I had a beef sandwich. It was a very interesting. The whole day was interesting, but most importantly, I really just enjoyed sharing the time and being with those that I love. I was with Avery, Owen, and Radka. So my niece and nephew, Avery and Owen, they were so happy to be with us and just to have a good time. And I enjoyed it. So altogether, I'm going to say Monster Jam was a hit. Now, am I going to go back? No, I don't want to go to Monster Jam. It's like the last thing I want to do. But it was super cool. So if anybody had something cool that they did in the last week or two, throw it in the chat. Share some good lives and good love and vibes with us. And if you're just joining us, welcome to this episode of Live Beyond Default Livestream. It's episode number 63. And you're going to want to take out a notebook today, because clearly all of us watching and listening to this live stream, we're growth minded and we're self-reflective, and we're doing our best to share our gifts with the world and fully express ourselves, which is super important. We want to get into that flow state. We want to give to the world. I always like to say that we owe rent back to our creator. Whoever or whatever that is, we owe rent back to our creator for being given the gift of life. And I know you'd agree with me on that one too. So today, last week, I wanted to bring up quickly that we discussed language patterns. And language patterns is something for many years I have obsessed about. And clearly, I've been training my mind to think a certain way and to speak a certain way and act a certain way. Naturally, when you up-level your language patterns, you are going to start speaking and thinking at a higher level. And consequently, those around you will do the same. So we talked about some words to get rid of, like sorry, and numerous other ones, but it just was, it made me rethink about my language patterns and what I'm doing on a daily basis. And really, not only how I'm speaking to myself, but how I'm speaking to my clients, how I'm speaking to my friends and my family and my niece and my nephew, especially when I was with them this past weekend. Instead of saying be careful, I was saying be aware. Be aware of the stairs. Be aware there's a lot of people here, so stay close to me. Versus be careful. I just think we could use a better word than just always saying be careful. So that was last week's show. Today, we are going to talk about discipline is destiny. And I think this is an amazing topic to discuss in the springtime. And it's really, really worth pondering because we think about spring cleaning and we think about decluttering, which I always suggest start with your car. And then from the car, come into the home and start looking at closets and drawers and go from one room to the next. That's a whole nother topic. So while we're thinking about spring and spring cleaning, how often do we truly organize our minds, our routines, and our assumptions? We're so, including me, so into really organizing and decluttering the physical spaces of our home and of our cars. But how often are we truly decluttering and looking at our minds, our routines, and our assumptions? So I challenge you and myself to think about the last week. And were the last 7 days as productive and as efficient as they could have been? So think about that. Did you find yourself being productive, getting done what you wanted to do, actually moving the needle forward towards your goals now that we're in month 3 of 2024? Or did you find yourself wasting time and overcomplicating things and perhaps falling back into old habits? We all do it. And I like to say, we're all doing the best we can with what we have at this time. Always. So, how we doing so far this year? We've had 2 months. We know some of us have goals. Some of us just got rid of goals completely and broke it down really to daily behaviors, which I'm going to say kudos to that because I'm really into just knowing what the daily behaviors and habits are and then just doing those every day. While, of course, having a goal in mind, but we know that we're not always going to hit the goals, and we know that our goals are going to change along the way and that we are going to pivot. But really think about it this last week. Did you find yourself wasting time? I did a few times because I wasn't feeling very good. And I caught myself. I caught myself wasting time and recognizing that our time and our focus and energy is so precious, and that each day we're given this new life, a new life and a new opportunity to grow and to share and to love those around us and really serve Team Human and our clients and our families. So often we just like to waste time. And I found myself doing it too. Overcomplicating things is another one. Like, how often do we overcomplicate things when really most of it's kind of simple? We just need to start doing it, right? So another thing is, are you focusing or still feeling the lingering effects of winter's inertia? So we get into this holiday phase, we get into this kind of like a what do I want to call it? Like a hibernation phase almost is what we get into. And then with that, we tend to we tend to have an inertia, right? So it's kind of like when you're driving in a car and then you hit the brakes really hard, you move forward. Well, it's that inertia. Even though you're slowing down and stopping, that inertia puts you forward. So it's the same thing with winter. Like some of that winter, we still have inertia and we're kind of chilling out. So where are you today in this third month of 2024? So it's time to for all of us to focus and to self-reflect on that. And that's why we're talking about discipline is destiny today. Brian says, I'm focusing on the systems with the goal in mind. Yeah, I love that. So Brian, thank you. Focusing on the systems with the goal in mind, setting up the systems which keep the boundaries and keep you focused and on path. Of course, having the goal in mind, then it's just following those systems and behaviors every day. Thanks for sharing, Brian. Appreciate that. Okay, so with Discipline is Destiny, today I'm going to share with you 5 habits and 5 ideas that will assist and give more credence to your discipline, your focus, and your energy, and of course, level up your time. So let's discuss these 5 ways that we can really self-reflect and then apply these shifts right away today. Because I know I'm going to do the same thing. You know, personal development is really a long journey. And we know that us at Live Beyond Default Livestream, whether you're a first-time listener or you've been listening to most of the 63 episodes that we're at today, it's all about just becoming a little bit better every day. And we are all doing the best that we can. We know that we could be doing a little bit better. So why not strive for it, right? We are built to grow like nature. We are built to expand and to share our gifts with the world. Why not do it, right? And that's what we're going to do right here. So take out those notebooks. Number 1, the battle against pleasure. Pleasure could be a discipline killer. Okay. Now, I'm not saying we have to live this super boring, never fun life. Okay. So just hear me out for a second because I'm starting off with a big one. It's the battle against pleasure. What's your pleasure? What's your go-to distraction? Maybe it's shopping on Amazon. Maybe it's food. Maybe it's sex. Maybe it's drinking. Maybe it's debauchery. That word debauchery is so funny. Such an old school word, but what is your pleasure? And are we using these pleasures as a distraction? Are we using these pleasures to take us away from that growth and that serving ourselves and serving our kids or our clients or team human? I always like to bring it back to team human. So think about yourself and your battle against pleasure. I know with mine, there are times that I find myself surfing on YouTube. And after a few minutes, I catch myself. So even if I'm watching like personal development videos, which like 90% of the time I am, even that could be a pleasure because I just get into a hamster wheel. And next thing you know, I've watched like 2 or 3 videos. It's like, you know what? Watch one and go apply it versus you keep watching these videos, right? Music videos I like watching sometimes on YouTube, which is kind of fun, especially seeing bands that have been playing for the last 20 or 30 years and they're still going. Like, I love doing that. I watched a couple Lil Wayne videos recently, which was kind of fun. But so the battle against pleasure, and where are we using pleasure as a distraction? Because the funny thing is, like, the mind and the body want it right now. No matter what it is, the mind and the body want it right now. And the hell with the consequences. We'll deal with that later. But it's when we make that, it's not doing that once. It's when we make that decision once, twice, 5, 10, 20 times, right? And then what happens? We get a little too much of a belly, right? Or our bank account goes down, or we realize that there's challenges that our kids are having because we're not paying attention to them and we're not providing leadership to our kids. Or how about if we're in a relationship with a significant other? We realize that we're not paying attention to him or paying attention to her or listening because we're going for that pleasure. We're going for that instant hit of dopamine. We all love that dopamine hit. Well, you get what I'm saying. And I do the same thing too. So let's reflect today and the rest of this week on the battle against pleasure. And where are we using some pleasurable items where it's beyond fun, where it's beyond just some enjoyment, where we're actually using it as a distraction or where it's actually becoming destructive. All right. I know you're going to do that because I'm doing the same thing. Number 2, focus, focus, focus. And if you were at Break the Mold or you've heard any of my keynote talks, I am regularly talking about focus and how important focus is. And that's why we're talking about it today, because to stay disciplined, we must keep our focus. Now, I use a couple ways to keep my focus going. Number 1, it's really eliminating distractions to the best that I can and setting myself up to win. There are so many distractions now, way more than back in the day. I like saying that, back in the day, way more than back in the day. Think of all the distractions that we have right now. And I'd love for someone to share in the chat if they have a distraction recently that they've been struggling with, because we all struggle with them. There's a lot of distractions. And without having that focus, there's no discipline, right? And as we're talking about, discipline is destiny and getting ourselves to that next level. So one way that I've used to increase focus is by applying the Pomodoro technique. And if you've heard my keynote, as I said before, I discuss it within that. If you have more questions about the Pomodoro technique, you could DM me. I just had somebody else come up to me a couple days ago and say, Dave, I was at the Break the Mold conference, your half-day summit, and I've been applying the Pomodoro technique. It really had an impact on my life. And I had never met this person before in person. I've met her via email, but I never met her in person. So it was really cool. Thank you, Eileen, for coming up and saying that to me. Made a big difference. So what is the Pomodoro technique? Well, Pomodoro means tomato in Italian. And this gentleman was in university and he's studying, and he was having a hard time staying focused on his studies because, as you know, if you study for a big exam or perhaps it was the bar. I'm working with a lot of estate planning attorneys right now, and they've all had to pass the bar exam. So think about that. Like, how do you stay focused when you have this massive amount of studying? I did it when I took the real estate exam 3 years ago. Like, oh my gosh, you really have to stay focused for it. So the Pomodoro technique was used by Francisco Cerullo, and what he did was, while he was studying, he had this tomato-shaped timer, and he would set the timer for 25 minutes and just work on one task, which was the studying. He would go all in, study for 25 minutes. Boom. Once the 25 minutes was up, he would get up, walk away from his desk, and he would take a 5-minute break. And I'd have to say, this has been an absolutely amazing way to really hone down and focus on something new. To really hone down and focus on something that's important to you. So think about that. I apply the Pomodoro technique in many different ways. I apply it when I'm making my outbound calls to clients every day. I apply it to when I'm working on my social media. I apply it when I'm doing my budgeting and finance. I apply the Pomodoro technique if I'm reading or doing outbound emails. So where can you apply the Pomodoro technique? Perhaps 1 or 2 or 3 different priorities that you have. Think about that. Where could you apply the Pomodoro technique to increase your focus? And then, of course, get back to discipline is destiny. It's harnessing that discipline so you get to that next level. Okay. Number 3, silence is strength. Now, silence is, it's tough. especially for us that love to talk. I love to talk clearly. And when I think about silence is strength, I think about my cousin, Eric. And he was always a strong and silent gentleman. And what I mean by that is you would talk to him and he wouldn't come back with something right away. Or you'd ask him a question and he'd pause for a second or two and think about it. And then he would answer. And that silence to me, I always thought was a gift for him and his strength. And this is why he was successful not only in real estate, but as he moved on to other endeavors. That's where his strength came from, his silence. And that's something that I've learned more over the years is working on that silence. Like we can learn so much just by being quiet and just by listening, whether it's at a party, whether it's you're in front of a client, especially when we're in front of a client, we want to listen. We want to be silent doesn't mean you don't ever talk, but we really want to hone in on the silence and just absorb what's going on so we fully receive what that person in front of us is saying. Same thing if you have kids, they got how important it is to have that silence and really just observe and watch and listen to what they're doing. Same thing with a spouse or a significant other. I think the silence is powerful. Now, I know in negotiation, if you talk to Scotty Tillema, okay, you know that in negotiation, silence is all powerful. Robert Greene says powerful people impress and intimidate by saying less. Now, we're not going out trying to intimidate people. That's not the point here, but you get the idea is powerful people impress and intimidate by saying less. So think of somebody that you know in your life right now that says less and is a little bit more silent when you're out with them or when you see them around other people, and observe like it's pretty powerful. And maybe we could all use a little bit more silence, especially because we hear so much chatter on social media and in our minds and in so many other places, getting hit by 7,000 ads a day, as Alan Stern would say. Maybe we can use just a little bit more silence. Okay. Number 4, do your best. So around discipline, we like to say to do our best. And you've heard it before. We're all doing the best we can with what we have at this time, always. How important is it for us to do our best? Well, it's moving the needle forward. And Napoleon Hill said this in Think and Grow Rich way back in the day. He said, you cannot stand still, because if you're standing still, things are set up where you are actually moving backwards. So the only way to move forwards is to continuously being on improvement, improving yourself every day, doing your best, doing a little bit better every single day. That's the way to grow. There's no standing still. And that really does make sense, because if you're standing still, you are actually going backwards. He said that almost 100 years ago. And I think it applies more now than it ever did. So let's do our best, right? Every day is almost like a separate and new life. And we always have the opportunity to just do a little bit better every single day. And wow, what a feeling that is. Okay. And lastly, put up boundaries. Putting up boundaries with ourselves, with our family, with our friends, with coworkers. But most importantly, setting up those boundaries with ourselves. And what do I mean by that? Well, saying no. Saying no is super important. giving yourself time to have fun or do something, and limiting that time because you know you have other things to do. Maybe it's setting up boundaries with respect to closing out and doing your evening practice and getting ready for bed, because we know how important sleep is. Sleep is super important. So it's setting up that boundaries, like after 8 p.m. or after 8:30 or after 9 or 9:30, whatever the time is for you. After this time, I am no longer going to do social media. I'm not going to be texting people, and I'm not going to be in front of a screen. That's setting up a boundary with yourself. And when we set up boundaries for ourselves, we are able to set up boundaries for others, because now we're primed. We're building that boundary muscle, okay? That boundary muscle, and we strengthen it and practice on ourselves. So then we set boundaries with our kids. We set boundaries with our clients. We set boundaries with our bosses or our significant others or whomever it is. We're able to set the boundary because we did it with ourselves. So today, what did we discuss? We discussed 5 ways right out of the book called Discipline is Destiny, because we're all growth minded, and clearly I'm not coming up with everything on my own. But what I am doing is I'm reading and I'm applying every single day behaviors and tactics that I'm learning to become the best version of myself. So if you haven't looked at this book yet or read this book, I highly recommend it. It's called Discipline is Destiny by Ryan Holiday. And today we discussed the battle against pleasure. We discussed on how important focus is, silence is strength, doing your best, and putting up boundaries. So thank you for watching or listening to this replay of Live Beyond Default Livestream. It's episode number 63. I know you took some good notes. I know we all have a chance to apply what we discussed today, because I need to apply some of these things today. In fact, right when I get off this live stream, it's time for me to focus, and make some outbound calls. So yeah, I really appreciate you all being here. And of course, subscribe to my YouTube channel, subscribe to Spotify, share if you find that this has been a good experience for you. And I'm always looking for feedback and comments of what I could be doing better, or maybe what you liked on the show and what you would like to see or hear more of. So 2 weeks from now, we have a guest, Rose LaSmith. She's going to be here in the studio, and she is a yoga instructor. She's a Pilates instructor. She's an actor. She's an entrepreneur, and she is super cool. And she's going to be sharing with us a little bit about her life and her journey and some of the struggles she faced along the way, and the challenges and how she overcomes them and how she fully expresses herself. So we always like to close with text somebody today. I'm thinking of you. And until next time, make it a great week. Thank you for watching. I so appreciate you. And let's make it the best day yet. Talk to you next time. Thank you.